seen rogues there, as long as there wasn't any explosives. Raging can cause some problems there just because of the sheer amount of mobs, and if you have lots and lots of mobs raging at the same time, you just can't dispel off the raging effect with the hunters anymore because of the cooldown on it. So it definitely can cause some issues. So especially with the small corridors as well, the tanks don't have as much space to kite around in case lots of mobs are raging at the same time.
Yeah, so currently we do see Perplexed and Deplete from Beyond here. They are running a little bit different of a comp, like you were talking about. Perplexed running with that Rogue, of course, the very good explosive killer. Deplete from Beyond electing to run that Demon Hunter. Neither of these teams are running a Hunter to be able to soothe off enraging effects, which can be important at some points. I think it's going to be interesting just to see how aggressive both of these teams take that courtyard area.
Yeah, both of them actually using the Bloodlust here for this very first pull. We've seen previously that teams would save their Bloodlust to do some bigger courtyard pulls where they would pull a bunch of trash from inside to the outside and then just pull a bunch of courtyard mobs on top and then use the Bloodlust for that big pull. But both of these teams not choosing to do so. It's also Tyrannical environment, so you gotta keep in mind that the bosses are also gonna be pretty important, especially in Waycrest. Some of those bosses can be pretty nasty, like this Triad boss here, so I think it's a good choice to use the Bloodlust for this one.
Yeah, I mean, in addition to that, Explosive actually costs you a significant amount of time on Heartsbane Triad, normally, like in a live key setting. On TR, probably a little bit less so, but it is still something that you have to value, that it's going to spend up some of your time to be forced to kill those explosive orbs.
Yeah, we see both of them are pretty even when it comes to damage. Perplexed slightly faster as they're about to finish off Sister Briar here. Now, Deplete from Beyond did pull a little bit more trash though, as they're on 10%. And once they finish off this Acolyte, they're going to be even more ahead. So, slight advantage for trash percentage to Deplete, but Perplexed finishing off the boss faster. Now we see a Shroud come out. So, Rogue Utility being used to do a skip here. Now, the other team can just use their Shadow Melt instead, so they don't actually need to use their Shroud if they want to skip these mobs, and that's exactly what they seem to be doing. Rentari jumping over, Shadow Melting off the aggro, and now they're gonna move on.
This is an enormous pull from Perplexed here. You did see Divine Field in that Shroud running all the way through, tagging Soulbound Goliath there, trying to get all the mobs grouped up. You see Zamak there using his leg sweep to try to make sure that everything is stunned. Matron Brindle is also in that pack, which can be dangerous for Divine, especially once she goes into the enrage right there. Like we were talking about, there's still no enrage dispel on the side of Perplex. Soulbound Goliath doesn't have too many stacks, so Divine should be able to face tank Matron Brindle even while she's enraged. But this could be fairly dangerous. Deplete from Beyond looking like they're doing something fairly similar.
Yeah, they're doing the same thing actually. We see both tanks were using that shield wall for the enrage on Matron Brindle because of that missing Soothe, or what is it called? Trank Shot? No, it's not. It's a different name, right?
It's not Trank Shot. It's a hunter ability. It's a pet ability. I don't even know.
Yeah.
It depends on the hunter pet. Like Sonic Screech is for the bat. I don't even know anymore.
True.
They're
Anyway, the pet
things.
ability to remove the enrage effect. Either way, both of them did use their shield wall to survive that enrage effect on the mini boss. And yeah, both of them are similar trash percentage, still 4% ahead on Deplete from Beyond, just because of this extra trash they pulled in the first boss. So very similar routes by both of those teams here, and very clean runs. 0 deaths so far. It seems like they also pulled Goliath backwards now. Probably means that they're gonna pull some more trash on top, like this corner pack.
Yeah, so either they're going to pull that double Thorn Shaper plus Thorn Guard that's in the corner, or they're going to pull that like Guard Captain Acolyte pack that's down the hallway a little bit. It looked like Perplex was trying to get a reset on the fire, and the fire despawned just a millisecond before Divine was able to kite Soulbound Goliath all the way through the fire. Deplete from Beyond on the opposite side, also resetting Soulbound Goliath at a similar time. Perplex immediately gets the stacks reset on Soulbound Goliath again, just unlucky fire spawning right on top of him, but it being a 19 Zamak, very easily able to heal through that.
Easily, you say? Well, Smok is pretty low on mana, so let's hope there's not a lot more fire spawning underneath Goliath now, as they also have to deal with the trash here. They definitely want to make sure they interrupt all of those abilities, especially when they're raging, because if you have those thorns go through or the soul fetishes, actually one soul fetish just went through on Perplexed side. So we'll see how they deal with that one. As Deplete from Beyond did the same thing, also pulled that trash on top. They dealt with it pretty nicely. They also do have a little bit more damage on their side, just because they have the Demon Hunter who buffs the magic damage from the DKs.
They also grabbed that Guard Captain Acolyte pack that was in the corner as well. So they are a substantial amount ahead of trash count over Perplexed just by slightly minor optimizations in terms of their pathing that they've done through this dungeon so far.
Yeah, I agree. As Perplexed did finish off the boss, and now it seems like they're ramping up to do a big pull, as Divine Field is popping that Lightfoot potion to get the speed increase, and he's running and running and running, even going into his Huntsman Lodge. This seems like an insane pull. Okay, so interesting enough, they're not pulling it on top of a boss. They just do a huge trash pull. Let's hope they can deal with all of the explosives that potentially spawn on this pull.
That's a sick line of sight by Divine whenever he's making his way into that into the area. You actually see him line all of those mobs that are coming out of the corridor with that big post that was sitting there. It makes everything group up super nicely for those DKs to kind of pop off. You saw the DKs run into the room with the anti-magic shell already pre-popped, so that if they got spat on, it just wouldn't apply to them. That was beautifully done by Perplexed, where Deplete from Beyond taking Urgroth Breaker of Heroes, the obelisk mob that resides out in the middle of that courtyard area, in dealing with that. So they're using their time in just a slightly different manner, not exactly a worse manner.
Yeah, we see now Ral being engaged with the rest of this room that they haven't pulled yet on Perplexed side. This trash might die a little bit slower compared to the other trash pull before, but because most of the offensive cooldowns have been used for the trash pack before, they definitely want to make sure they take care of these explosives. As we had one go off, the group dropped incredibly low, most of them out of defensives as well, just because of this trash pack that they pulled before. But now the trash is going down, so they should be able to deal with Ral itself pretty easily. Ral, known to be a boss that is not too dangerous, just because all of the abilities are dodgeable.
This is disgusting by Perplexed. They literally went enormous pull back to back, like straight into Raw without any cooldowns, and Divine was just able to tank out the whole entire thing. No suits for enraging. Like, it was just explosive killing. That's all that was needed, and then it was pretty. It made it look so effortless, even though we all know from playing live that is not an effortless pull.
Yeah, it definitely is not, especially when all of those mobs are raging at the same time and there's no way he can kite, because if you go out of melee range, if you have aggro of the boss, he will start casting Consume Magic, and that's a huge AoE in the whole group, so no way of kiting the raging mobs. But good usage of Ring of Peace by Smok as well, to be able to give Divine Field some breathing room. Now, also pulled this Rune Weaver on top of the boss here. One thing this Rune Weaver does is a frontal cast that does leave a curse behind. Unfortunately, this curse cannot be dispelled by Smok, so Divine Field just has to off-tank this extra magic damage that it does.
Yeah, you also do see Deplete from Beyond has Raw the Gluttonous down to 52%, where Perplexed has it down to 28%. Deplete from Beyond has dealt with Urgroth Breaker of Heroes, where on the side of Perplexed they have not. But Perplexed does have that 8% trash count advantage. So that's something that you have to keep in mind. Yeah,
that 8% trash, I mean, we so far, correct me if I'm wrong, we haven't seen Perplexed do any of the Awakened mobs. So it's a possibility that we see them do all 4 of them with the last boss. We've seen, I think the most we've seen so far was 3, and that already looked a little bit sketchy, just because there's so little room on the last boss.
Yeah.
So I'm not really sure if it's possible to do 4, but we'll see. Okay, it actually looks like they're going out to do that obelisk here, so no 4 Awakened mobs. And this means that Deplete from Beyond has a... I mean, this is pretty even now, right?
So Zamok
Deplete from Beyond already did this obelisk, meaning that this is going to be a completely even match, if not Deplete from Beyond being ahead at this point.
Zamok, I think, is activating this other pillar right here. Look at him. Okay, so he's activating it right now.
Okay,
yeah, so they're doing double obelisks together. So they're doing something that's a little bit more efficient for Deplete from Beyond. Where Deplete from Beyond can actually make up a really good time here if they are saying that they're comfortable playing triple obelisk with Gorak Tool, right? Because they won't have to kill the obelisk. They'll literally just like walk all the way downstairs and do whatever they're about to do.
Yeah, so yeah, you're right. If they skip this obelisk, the second one that Perplexed is dealing with right now, then Deplete from Beyond is theoretically ahead. But we'll see what they do as they finish off this Rune Weaver here. It looks like they might play it as they're walking downstairs, or no, they're not. Okay, so they're walking past, meaning they might do a triple awaken pull downstairs, which will definitely be difficult for them to pull off, but we'll see. We've already seen it done before. Now it looks like they're either doing a skip or they're doing a pretty big trash pull. They're all Shadow Melt Night Elves, so they can all just Shadow Melt, and it looks like that's what they're doing. So now I assume they're gonna pull this this boss room on top of Lord and Lady Waycrest, because there's no affix that prevents them, of course, to pull all of this on top of the boss.
Yeah, Deplete from Beyond here, pulling Lord and Lady Waycrest with all the trash. They also grab that Marked Sister that's in the corner that a lot of groups like to forego. Deplete from Beyond, do they have enough trash count currently? They must, because they're also playing Obelisk with the final boss, right?
They have 3 Awakened mobs as well. So it should be alright, but yeah, this is going to be a super close match, as Perplexed now also engaged the boss fight with the whole trash room. So they're going to be completely even here. The only difference is that Perplexed only has to deal with 2 Awakened mobs in the last boss, while Deplete from Beyond has 3. Meaning Perplexed is going to have a little bit more boss damage, just because they don't have to deal with the Awakened mobs extra. I'm pretty sure Deplete from Beyond has to focus some of the Awakened mobs. They can't just cleave off of the boss, just because of the little room you have and the amount of interrupts you need as well in that last boss fight. So there's no way you can just passively cleave them. You have to actively focus them, meaning they're going to lose a little bit of damage compared to Perplexed only having to deal with 2 of them. Well, both seem to have all the trash done now of this area. Perplexed 90%, Deplete from Beyond 87%. And now there's also a question if either of those teams can pull the horrors on top of the last boss, which we've seen
that would be
Limit
wild.
do.
I kind of hate that with Raging. Do you think that either team could be able to pull that off?
I mean, I think you can do it with Raging if you put a really well-placed Ring of Peace at the very end when they go into Raging. So Smok has to jump off the ledge at the very end, put the ring, and then just let them jump.
Yeah.
But that's really risky.
Because that would... Okay, so presumably he would be sitting in a snap spot as well, to where the Gloom Horrors don't jump as well, because since they're also Raging, that would probably cause him to die if they were leaping on him, right? I think this is gonna be a photo finish. I'm pretty convinced. Lord and Lady Waycrest. So for Perplexed, Lord Waycrest is down to 46%. Lady Waycrest down to 4%. Deplete from Beyond, Lady Waycrest down to 2%. Lord Waycrest down to 23%. 0 deaths on both sides. Again, Deplete from Beyond is going to have to play 3 Obelisks with Gorak Tool. Perplexed is only going to have to play 2. So that's going to be some inherent time save as well. This is going to be right down to the wire, I feel like.
How well both of these teams are playing. I mean, look at the time. It's 13 minutes into the dungeon. They're now engaging the last boss. This is an incredible time by both of them. And 0 deaths in a Waycrest manner with these affixes is really impressive. As we see, Perplexed actually did a skip, so it looked like they're not pulling. They're engaging the Awaken mobs now. So Bloodlust ready for both of those teams. Let's see if they can pull this off. Ooh, the horrors are here now as well. All right, let's see it.
Okay, so yeah, Deplete from Beyond has all the Gloom Horrors with them. Perplexed looks like they also have all the Gloom Horrors with them. They're making sure that all of them get stacked up on both sides, so that they're able to get Deplete down evenly. Deplete from Beyond just took off running immediately as soon as Lord and Lady Waycrest died, where Perplexed was trying to be a little bit more tactical. That may end up costing them. There is a different amount of obelisks that is the differential between the two teams, but Perplexed is actually catching up in boss damage. Holy moly.
Yeah, the amount of single target damage Perplexed has seems like they're actually actively cleaving off of the boss, which they are able to do because they only have 2 Awakened mobs, while Deplete from Beyond and their side has 3. This is what I mentioned before. This is why the Perplexed has a little bit more single target boss damage, while Deplete from Beyond had to focus the Awakened mobs a little bit more just because of the extra risk they took with 3 of them instead of 2. And this is such a close game. Look at the HP of the boss. This is
They're dead
actually
even.
They're moving at the same time.
Yeah, Voidweaver Malthier is still alive on the side of Perplexed. It's going to go down here in just a few more seconds. And then... dude, I don't know the difference in the time here. This is probably going to have to be an admin decision, isn't it?
Most definitely. I mean, if you don't see any deaths, which I don't see there any deaths anymore, right? Because the awakened mobs are down. As long as they burn the ads, there shouldn't be any more problems coming in for both those teams. There's a lot of slavers alive, unfortunately though, but they should be able to burn them as soon as they go down here. And yeah, now it looks like Perplexed did catch up a little bit on boss damage though. It's still incredibly close.
Swag, roll a 5 buff. Your team needs you.
And now Deplete
Oh my
from Beyond
goodness,
is
now
ahead
Deplete from
again.
Beyond is put it in 5th gear. What in the world? Gorg Tool's just perishing.
Looks like Deplete from Beyond is gonna make it, but this is still
what a
incredibly
game!
hard. This is just a couple of seconds.
Whoa.
Okay, so that is going to be a 2-second victory on the side of Deplete from Beyond here in this first game on Waycrest. Now, Tattles, during that dungeon, you were saying that Perplexed was handling those obelisks a little bit more efficiently than Deplete from Beyond, but then we saw them catch up there at the last minute, break down those moments, those final moments for Deplete from Beyond.
So Deplete from Beyond was convinced that they could play triple obelisk into the final boss and prove that they were absolutely right. Where Perplexed decided that Samrek, which is the fear guy, is just not worth playing with the final boss and that they'd rather play Urgroth plus Samrek together. Oh my goodness, that was a photo finish there at the very end. I don't think that... Oh, it doesn't do either team justice to, like, critique them, because that was just a flawless run by both teams.
And we have official times in for both teams. 15:23.9 for Perplexed, 15:22.1 for Deplete from Beyond. So winning that map by 1.8 seconds. Both teams with 0 deaths. That's ridiculous. Both of those runs were, I mean, they were pretty much perfect from both teams.
Yeah, and for those of you watching from home, this was a time trial run, so obviously both of these teams are going to be very well practiced on this map, and it just goes to show how consistently and how perfect you have to execute these kinds of maps when it's neck and neck like this, Zyro.
Yeah, I mean, at that point, it could literally be what they were saying on the final boss there, just roll a 5 buff to try to get some extra damage. I mean... It's utterly ridiculous how close that was there. That could be just one mob not being in for 1 pack for perfect cleave. It comes down to the tiniest things, which is why when we talk about in every single match, whenever there's just a random death that they have to battle res up, that's 5 seconds on the board. These things matter in these dungeons. It's so close, especially when both of these teams are playing on this level. That's ridiculous. I can't wait to see more from this match, if this is how these guys are going to play the entire series.
It's the Waycrest Manor, man.
Oh man, the Waycrest Manor, brilliant. Well, so let's talk about that third DPS slot. They did have Deplete from Beyond had that Demon Hunter, and then Perplexed had the Rogue. And I don't know, it sounded like it was going to come down to single target damage on that last boss, and then Deplete from Beyond just like got those last 10% health points on that boss down so quickly, Nagura.
I mean, at this point, the damage really didn't matter because it was just all about this time. It was 1 second, right? So I think the difference in comp just calls for a different strategy. You had the Rogue on one side for explosives, of course, and then you also had the Shroud, meaning one of the skips was a little bit faster because they didn't have to do the Shadow Melt skip. You could use the Shroud instead. So I think it was just very slight differences in strategy because of the Demon Hunter versus the Rogue. Demon Hunter does provide the magic damage for the Unholy Decays, but Rogue does some more single target damage compared to the Demon Hunter. So I think it just was both tiny little differences, and both of them just had such a perfect run. I do feel a little bit sad for Perplexed because that was a perfect run by them too, and any small little like damage proc or corruption proc would have been in their favor and they would have won. So I'm just looking forward to the next game or even 2 games in this series.
But along the same lines, I feel like when you have a perfect run, you can't be upset that you lost. You can only look at yourself and be like, okay, what could we have done better? Because clearly the other team got a little either they got a little more lucky over the course of an entire 15-minute dungeon, which in general RNG tends to average out over longer periods of time. So over a 15.5-minute dungeon, I don't think one team is going to have that significantly more corruption procs to where their damage would be that much higher, right? Especially when the majority of your damage comes from DKs who stack percentage stack corruptions and not random damage procs. So it's probably not going to come down to RNG. It's probably more going to come down to they just did a couple of their pulls a little bit better than the other team, and then they can go back and look at the VOD and be like, oh, okay, we could have saved some time here.
Yeah, well, we are going to be moving... Ooh, go ahead.
You go ahead.
I was just going to say we're moving on to King's Rest, and Perplexed played this map earlier today against Couch Pepega, and they only had 2 deaths on that board, and it looks like they might be in a good spot here coming up on this next game, Tettles.
Yeah, I mean, it's... So, King's Rest was one of our time trial maps. Perplexed, with the 2014, was number 2 in our time trials for King's Rest, only behind Method EU, and then Deplete from Beyond was number 4 in our time trials at 21-26. So, if Perplex is able to pull off what is virtually a flawless run, then they should be in a good shape to be able to take the match. But with it being Bolstering in KR, it's hard to always have those kind of runs.
Yeah, definitely, and we've seen a couple of teams struggle on King's Rest and have a couple of sloppy moments here, and Bolstering is really making things it's super difficult, it seems like, today, Zyro, with this affix.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing with Bolstering, right? When it goes wrong, it can go very wrong, and this is definitely one of the harder dungeons to deal with it properly. We've seen teams waste 30 seconds dealing with Bolstering mobs in the first room just this weekend, so, there's a lot that can definitely go wrong here.
Yeah, for sure. Well, the game is loaded and our teams are gearing up to go here in King's Rest. Is Perplexed going to be able to tie this up, or is Deplete from Beyond going to take them home with a 2-0?
Well, yeah, so we're in King's Rest. It's all going to be about Perplexed now. Let's see if they can deal with this pressure that is on them. I mean, they're the number 2 seed, and they got praised so much after the first cup 2 weeks ago. They were praised that they had incredible play, they were even close to Method EU, and now they're 1-0 down against Deplete from Beyond. So we'll see what they do here, as both of them are running this triple hunter comp, as they've also been running in the time trials.
Yeah, so both teams, it looks like they're off there dealing with those minions of Zul, trying to get those despawned before making their way into the Golden Serpent room. It just allows their healer to be able to run off and save them a little bit of time later on in the dungeon. We know more likely than not, both of these teams are going to pull those constructs into the Golden Serpent. Perplex and Deplete from Beyond both pull up that left side, do a double Witch Doctor pull. Fairly dangerous as a whole, but we're seeing mirrored pulls right here.
Yeah, I mean, the Witch Doctors are so dangerous just because of the Deathly Chill cast. It does so much magic damage to the tank if they're not interrupted. But they also do a Shadow Bolt volley cast, which also needs to be interrupted, and you just run out of interrupts, especially because you have a triple hunter comp, meaning you have a little bit of a longer cooldown on your interrupt compared to like full melee comp. So well done by both of the teams as they dealt with the first pull pretty nicely. Now the second, the other 2 trash packs are being engaged by Perplexed, and looks like Divine Field is out of defensives here, so let's see how he deals with this pack.
Yeah, it's kind of weird because Rentari was able to save his shield wall the whole entire time,
Yeah.
while Divine popped his like super early on. Yeah, there you go. You see Rentari's shield wall coming out right now. Like Nagura was saying, since they don't have a bunch of kicks, they have to let a lot of the Deathly Chills go through and just rely on the hunters to be able to kick the Shadow Bolt volley. And like while you're face taking those Deathly Chills, just the ability to be able to hold on to your shield wall as long as Rentari did there was kind of impressive.
Yeah, I agree. Now Deplete from Beyond is pulling those 2 Guardians on top of the Golden Serpent. One thing to note is that Perplex did not use their Bloodlust. Maybe that was why Divine had to use that shield wall. While on the other hand, Deplete from Beyond did use their Bloodlust. Actually, no, they were also saving it for the boss. Never mind. My bad. Both of them were saving it for the boss. And now we have the Guardians being pulled on top for both teams as well. Now, we've seen some teams in the past have problems with this Golden Serpent here. We've seen some deaths here and there, so hopefully both of these teams do manage to pull this off cleanly.
Yeah, so both of the teams utilizing their Hunter pet to get full value out of the Bloodlust. Of course, if you're just using drums, I think you would get 5% less haste, and I think it's like 5 seconds shorter. So both teams there making sure that they do in fact get full value. We also have seen the turtles come out from the hunters on both sides. That allows you to not get the debuff from that spit gold at all, allowing your healer to do just a little bit more damage. You do see Zamak on the side of Perplex doing 40k DPS, where Deplete from Beyond, Igloo is doing 35k. Not a small amount for a healer, I will say, while having to heal up that spit gold dot. So both of these guys really trying to balance and play to the utmost advantage of how much damage they're actually able to pump out on single target.
Yeah, and it's a bit of RNG as well here in this boss, how much damage the healer can do, because if you get all the hunters in a row and they just immune it all, then you can do so much damage. While if the other group gets the same hunter on the spit goal 3 times, then he just has turtle for 1, and then the healer of course needs to heal and can't really do damage anymore. So a little bit of RNG for the healer DPS, but both of those teams down the boss pretty much at the same time, as both Mistweaver monks are waiting for this gate to open so they can pull the other 2 guardians on top of the gauntlet that the rest of the team is waiting at.
Yeah, they killed the Golden Serpent within 3 seconds of one another, and if we have another dungeon that ends within 1.5 seconds, I think I may have a heart attack. Because it's already happened once today with Perplexed. They lost to Couch Papega and Ataldazar by 1.5 seconds.
True.
And then they lose to Deplete from Beyond by 1.5 seconds, so...
Their poor nerfs.
not their lucky day.
Doesn't seem like their lucky day at all. You're right. As Deplete from Beyond is finishing off this pull, and as soon as they finish off, we see the Guardians come in. Now this is actually pretty important. The fact that not only do they not get the bolstering, of course, on the Guardians, this needs to be a perfect pull, because if they come in too early, the Guardians, they will get bolstered by the trash group, and the team doesn't get out of combat, and then you can't use your pre-pot, and so on, or your out of combat pot rather. So very good timing by both of the teams to not bolster any of those Guardians and to get them in at the perfect moment. So yeah, both teams so close again, but there's still a lot of the dungeon left, and there's still so many things that can go wrong, especially in that King's Rest with Bolstering and Tyrannical.
Oh, that's super interesting. So I noticed that Zamak is actually running that Merectus Fang, so that strength trinket on his healer. Where on the side of Igloo, he's running the Corrupted Gladiator's Medallion. Divine is also running the Merectus Fang, where Rentari is running the Corrupted Gladiator's Insignia. Pretty much everybody's running Vita Charge Titan Shard, by the way, because of group haste, but as the alternative trinket, those are what other groups are running. So Divine and Zamak are running for a little bit more AoE damage.
Yeah, it has been interesting, especially here in King's Rest. A lot of teams kind of disagree with each other on what they want here. Some teams are running more AoE heavy builds, while other teams have been running more single target heavy builds. And I think none of the teams really agree on what they really want here. But maybe they just both go, maybe all of the teams go with a little bit of a mixture. Let's say our healer is going to run the AoE trinket, but then our hunter is going to run more of a single target corruption build instead, you know? Maybe they just like do one thing more than the other, and then they switch it up just to get everything a little bit. Either way, both of those teams are dealing with the last gauntlet trash pack here. Smoke dropping a little bit low as that Raptor jumps on him, but no problem as he deals with it with the Ring of Peace.
You actually made a great point. So all 3 of the DPS from Team Perplexed are running Vision of Perfection Major, which is a little bit more single target focused, where all 3 of the DPS from Team Deplete from Beyond are running that Blood of the Enemy Major, which is for a little bit more AoE. It also helps that 2 of the DPS from Deplete from Beyond are running Aspect of the Beast, while Clix is playing Killer Cobra, and then all 3 of the DPS from Perplex are running Killer Cobra. So even with the Hunters, there is still some, like Nagura was saying, it's like they're trying to figure out whether or not they'd rather play for single target or for AoE. It's also bolstering too. You have to factor that into account. So Hunter is flexible enough to where it isn't just a cookie cutter decision, though.
Yeah, it actually looks like
What is Deplete from Beyond doing?
Okay, this seems very interesting as they dealt with the construct on the bridge. So interestingly enough, they pulled a construct on the bridge, got it pretty low as they were pulling the rest of this room. Yeah, just getting a little bit extra percentage here. I think I like this just because it is bolstering anyway, so you might as well just kill the construct too, as long as you can deal with the beam. So if they can skip another trash bag later, which we will see, then this might just be worth it for them, as Perplexed on the other hand is already dealing with their second trash pull here in this room, and now they can engage Machimba.
That was very interesting for Deplete from Beyond. Perplexed is a little bit ahead. But like you were saying, it kind of depends on where the trash count ends up landing. We saw Method EU earlier actually pull the Purification Construct with Machimba. Once they did get Machimba primed to where he no longer does mechanics. So there is a way that Perplexed pulls that Purification Construct into the boss as well. But probably not at this point though, as that gate is up.
Yeah, I don't think so either. As we can see, Perplexed, on the other hand, now is doing this strategy where everyone is clicking on those
Coffins,
tombs. Yeah, that
yeah,
one.
sure.
At the same time. Some of them, of course, are the wrong ones, and then you get those at spawn. You see the skeletons in front of those tombs, and that's why they immediately get succeed with the ink cap and the traps by the hunters, because they don't want to deal with those. They do cast an ability that, if not interrupted, they will leave a disease on everybody that ticks for a lot of damage, so you just do not want to deal with that, and that's why they immediately succeed them. And by clicking that tomb immediately, Machimba basically stops casting any ability anymore for the rest of the fight, meaning that it will just be more DPS for the group, because they don't have to move out of the fire anymore, they don't have to deal with the drain fluid. But on the other hand, Divine Field will take more damage, because those casts are not going to be happening anymore, and therefore Machimba just constantly melee attacks Divine Field instead.
Machimba is actually one of the hardest hitting melee bosses in the game. So whenever he just melees you, he just beats you into the ground. I think Rixa's melees are maybe a little bit worse for Prot Warrior, but that is solely because she does like magic damage melees. But Divine's health just like starts spiking, and if for some reason he ever has a lapse in his shield block, then he could potentially go down. Does a really good job there on the side of Perplexed. Deplete from Beyond, Rentari, something similar is going on over there for their side, and they're kiting out Machimba. Again, like we were saying, look at that difference in trash count. Deplete from Beyond is 4% on enemy forces ahead of Perplexed. If that allows them to like skip one pull or skip one pack, that could save them way more than whatever is like 25 or 30% on Machimba.
Yeah, I agree. I just wonder what exactly they're going to skip. Maybe this trash pack that Perplex is dealing with right now. It does seem to be similar percentage, but we will see as Perplex is moving on, doing their next pull. This Berserker Devil caster that we've seen Perplex deal with is actually a pretty dangerous pack, and that's why they had to pull it by itself and didn't really pull it on top of anything else. We'll see what Deplete from Beyond does. Maybe no, doesn't seem like they're skipping this pack either. But it seems like they're doing a pretty big pull as they pull another Berserker and a Witch Doctor on top.
I think they may skip that Raptor pack.
Yeah, maybe.
That's at the very end. Which, if they're able to skip a full trash pack, that may end up leveraging them into something that's a little bit more efficient. Perplexed here has downed all of that trash, and now they're sitting here waiting for this brute to get in a good position. They all pop their Lightfoots in unison. Divine is trying to get aggro and everything as he's running by. They're doing a really good job of using Para and Trap to be able to deal with all of this. Divine dropping incredibly low. He needs to make it all the way into the room before pressing Shadow Meld. He needs to make sure all of his group is in. They all do it seamlessly. That was pretty scary, but they made it look effortless.
Yeah. So Divine Field got a Frost Shock on him by one of the casters, which not only does initial damage, but it also slows. And as soon as Mok dispelled the slow, he got a Corruption slow. So a little bit unfortunate. You just constantly was slowed there, but did manage to survive. As they engage Kula now, Deplete from Beyond, on the other hand, they're even pulling this Brute, interestingly enough. We've seen, I think, most of the teams, in fact, all of the teams, skip this Brute so far, just because of the sheer amount of HP that this mob has, compared to the amount of percentage that it gives. But it looks like maybe after this trash pack, they actually have enough, so they don't have to deal with anything anymore after this. Maybe with Shadow of Sul at their Awaken mobs, I'm not really sure. No, it looks like they're pulling. Yeah, I'm not really sure.
So Shadow of Zul is 4%. Awaken mobs and KR, I have no idea what they would be. But they are going to be playing...
all of them?
All of yeah, well, it looks like to
it
be
looks
4
like both
Awaken
teams
mobs.
are dealing with all 4.
Yeah,
Since
yeah,
both
so,
of them skipped
it's
all of
probably enough
Daedalus so
count.
far.
Yeah. That's... How do you feel about that Brute? Oh, Rentari's going to have to die. He didn't get out of combat quick enough. So, whenever I was talking about Divine needs to make sure that his whole entire group presses Meld at the exact same time and they made it look effortless, that's what I was talking about. It's really easy to mess up.
Yeah, it sounds simple, right? Oh, just run through and
Meld.
press Shadow Meld. But it's really not that simple, because as we just saw on Deplete from Beyond side, if you don't use it at the same time, or someone is still too close, or whichever thing happens, you can just either have one person die, or maybe even have a full team wipe, because one person can get the rest of the team in combat. So well done by Deplete from Beyond to recover here. They're also now fighting Kula, while Perplexed is already on Sun SL. They also let the explosive totem just go off. I think this is just a strategy that has evolved now. Everyone is doing it because, yeah, as long as you survive the explosive totem, why switch to it when you can just out-heal it, right? Just let the healer do their jobs.
Yeah, the only totem that you need to hit is actually the Earthwall totem, like, because it puts a shield on the boss, so why not just let everything else kind of go off? And Thundering Totem doesn't really affect your hunters. They're hunters. Deplete from Beyond actually pulled a Berserker in with Kula the Butcher as well, so I think that's probably where they're going to get their last little bit of trash count. Perplexed needs to do one trash pull after this boss before making their way on to Shadow of Zul, where I think Deplete from Beyond may just be done.
Yeah, I like this build because it is bolstering, right? But in between the two bosses here, they can kill off the mob, and then you don't have the bolstering or anything. So this is pretty efficient by Deplete from Beyond. And they will probably pull the second Berserker in when Stanislav is low, and then they will kill it off once Stanislav is dead before Akali spawns. So very nice little trick here by Deplete from Beyond to get a very efficient cleave, but also just not bolster the bosses. So well done by them. And yeah, as you mentioned, the trash percent difference probably means that after they're done with this boss on Deplete from Beyond side, they only have to do Shadow of Zul, while Perplexed, they're gonna have to do a trash pull here.
Yeah, they have a boss and a half left to deal with too. They are mighty far behind, it looks like. I think just in terms of time, because there's no way that this one like trash pull that they have to do is going to end up taking them what is effectively a boss and a half from Council of Tribes.
We'll see. I mean,
trash right now. Okay, there goes the melds. We're like,
Yeah, so it seems like they're pulling this Beastmaster Hexpriest Raptor pack. I still think that you're right that Deplete from Beyond is behind here, because Perplex wants to deal with this. I'm not sure if they were intending. Oh, okay, so they're just doing this bigger pull here. I like this. So there was some CC coming in on the side, and they put the rest of the pack on top. This is a pretty dangerous pack to deal with, but they have some casters to see in the corner. I think it was a Shine that threw a trap, and now they can just feign death off the aggro afterwards.
What I was going to say is that the setup for that pull is actually pretty slow.
Yeah, it took a while.
And it is, since it is bolstering, you have stuff like the Raptors and like the Healing Tide Totem, which will end up healing mobs, or the Raptors that will leap out of melee, which can get bolstered at pretty high amounts of HP. Like you saw that Raptor was at like 15 or 20% health whenever those other stuff started getting killed, but it got swapped too quick enough to where it didn't matter. Can be dangerous. Took a lot of setup, but Perplexed makes it, again, look pretty easy, even though something like that is not very easy.
Yeah, I agree. And yeah, in the end, I mean, Deplete from Beyond definitely did have interesting strategy, and the thing with the Berserkers and pulling the construct from the bridge on top, but in the end, didn't really seem like it saved them as much time as we thought, because the setup time that they needed with the construct, the setup time with the Berserkers, it cost them more time than Perplexed had to use to finish off this one extra trash pack they have to pull, right? Deplete from Beyond now did manage to finish off the boss though, and as we mentioned, they are done with trash. Now they have to kill Shadow of Zul only, and the rest they will get from the awakened mobs. While Perplexed though, they're already on the boss, ready to use their Bloodlust and deal with those 4 awakened mobs that they have.
Yeah, Perplexed doing the tried and true strategy of hold W, walk through the instance, collect profit.
Yeah.
Perplexed here now fighting all those awakened mobs. They're actually starting on top of Voidweaver Malthier. This makes a lot of sense. It allows Divine to get the first kick in the rotation. Like with that, he's going to have to be kiting away from the Blood of the Corruptor. Voidweaver Malthier is probably going to get trapped out in the middle of nowhere, in the middle of the puddles. There's also the Dark Fury cast that Divine can't be dealing with. So him getting that first interrupt, starting right on top of Malthier, makes a lot of sense for Perplexed.
Yeah, definitely. And this is also so having the fear cast here can cause lots of issues in some dungeons, but because we have the revival, which can get rid of all the debuffs once, and then we also have the dwarf racials, which can get rid of the debuff a second time, and then you also have, of course, Turtle by the Hunter. So lots of defensive / cooldowns they can use to get rid of that fear, so they don't have to deal with it at all. And then we also have the single target dispel as well. And we see the Hunters constantly reviving their pets. And this is because they're taunting off the Spirit Breaker cast from the Tank Buster, so Divine Field does not have to deal with it.
Interestingly enough, you actually did see, it looks like a Shine. He feigned death off that Quaking Leap. If you feign death, if you feign the Quaking Leap before it starts like lunging at you, you can reset the cast. The boss will immediately recast, but that saves your tank a decent amount of damage because the boss can only either cast Quaking Leap or it can cast that Blade combo. That Blade combo way more dangerous for your tank than Quaking Leap is for the rest of the party. So they're just trying to delay it as much as possible.
I like this strat because, especially at the start, that tank combo will be very dangerous as well, having to tank all of these Awaken mobs. So I like the fact that they're helping out the tank a bit with not only taunting off the Spirit Breaker. Oh, Wolf Disco actually going down as he had the Raptor jump on him, got one of this frontal cast, and then also got the leap on top of it. Now, this one death difference probably is not gonna be the time to make up for Deplete from Beyond, though. They're also on King Dasar now, but they are 6% behind on the boss, and they also have 5 extra seconds in Perplexed favor.
Yeah, basically they need to hope that Divine ends up going down here on this next sphere. But Perplexed looks like they're going to be okay. Divine ends up getting feared, running away. The boss doesn't end up casting
damage, though. Yeah, they actually caught up a little bit now. I mean, Perplexed, I think sometimes it's really close, and then one team just has a cooldown ready, and then it drops so much lower on their side. It does seem like Perplexed did manage to get their cooldowns back up, as the boss isn't close to 40%. Now Deplete from Beyond looks like they're behind again. It is a 5 seconds difference in Perplexed's favor, so it really looks like it's their thing to win. But if one person goes down or the damage cooldowns from Deplete from Beyond get ready at the very last second, it could still be theirs.
I mean, they do have to battle that 5 seconds, which on a fight like this, on a pure single target fight, 5 seconds is actually a significant amount of DPS that you would have to overcome in addition to what is already a hurdle to be able to overtake. But yeah, it is incredibly close, and maybe it ended up coming down to that like Rentari death on that skip where then Igloo had to mass res him and stuff like that. And that was 5 seconds, and then like the 8 seconds to cast mass res. Whenever you're battling against another team that is so close to you, like Deplete from Beyond and Perplexed are right now, it's going to come down to a matter of seconds, like it's going to in this match again. Oh my goodness.
We have seen some super close matchups today, but that victory is going to be going to Perplexed, tying up this series versus Deplete from Beyond. Both teams are at 1-1 right now, and a couple of things happened in that game. I feel like, you know, it seems like Deplete from Beyond may have caught up there a little bit at the beginning there, but tell us, what was the deciding factor here on Perplexed win? How were they able to pull off that victory?
I mean, I think ultimately they pulled off the victory. Like, the Perplexed and Deplete from Beyond, it looked like their times were going to be fairly similar. But Perplexed had a 20-minute, 14-second run in time trials, so I do wonder if they were doing something just a little bit more different in time trials, or it could potentially come down to something like just like bolstering management. But even then, I'm not entirely sure. Like, to be able to lose a minute from your time trials to like a live performance, it makes me wonder if they were playing a little bit more risky strategy, like maybe on their 5th run, and they got their best time on that, or if that was really their strategy that they had ran in that dungeon.
Yeah, I mean, they did only have that one death there at that final boss, and as you said, this is a time trial dungeon. Nagura, do you have any thoughts on that? Or do you think that they were doing the same strategy that they were doing in practice, or did they maybe switch something up a little bit?
I think both of the teams were just running their time trial strategy. Both of the teams did have a little bit, did have some problems, right? We saw some deaths for both sides. It was 1 death and 2. And maybe these deaths just caused them to lose a little bit of time here, and then they maybe didn't play the bolstering optimally on one of the packs, and then you lose a couple of seconds there. And in the end, Deplete from Beyond was really close to their time trial time, right? It was only Perplexed that was a little bit slower than their time. And in time trials, you can, in my opinion, you can take everything a little bit riskier there and maybe run a little bit more corruption, you know, and just hope you don't get a lot of things from Beyond to increase your damage, because you do have the 5 tries in time trials. Well, here in a tournament, you maybe do not want to run 60 corruption or 100 corruption, because if you die there, you can't just go out and try again. So maybe that's why they had 1 minute less or 1 minute more in their tournament run.
Yeah, and so Deplete from Beyond has banned Workshop, which would have been the next map in our pool. However, we will be going to Freehold, and those affixes are going to be Tyrannical, Raging, Explosive. Zyro, looking at those last 2 games that we saw, we are tied up. What sort of advice would you maybe give these 2 teams if they wanted to get the edge over the competition here?
I don't know what advice I'd give them, but I don't know about leaving Freehold open against Perplexed. Now, it is Tyrannical, right? So it's going to be a little bit harder for any potential kiting strategy to come out, but it's still definitely possible, right? I'm not really sure. I mean, I would hope that Deplete from Beyond has practiced that strategy, but we saw them in Freehold earlier today where they didn't even go for it. So if they actually held that strat in their back pocket and they're holding it for this match, and that's why they left Freehold open, that would be impressive. And in an already impressive 3-game series that we're in right now, I don't know if I'm ready for that.
Well, do you think kiting the obelisks is quicker than cannonball barraging the final pack that's in front of Harlan Sweet? So like the kite on the obelisk was actually a super sick strategy whenever it was bolstering, because you couldn't cannonball barrage that middle pack, but you're missing the count from the awakened mobs, plus you're missing the count from the middle pack that you could cannonball barrage, so you're going to end up missing like 15%. Is that worth not having to DPS down those obelisks and you lose your healer DPS?
I don't know. We'll see. I'm sure at some point.
Perplexed would be the people to know, I guess.
They would be the ones to know, right?
We'll have to ask them. We don't know. We'll have to ask them.
I mean, we'll see. If they've practiced it, they've probably figured out whether or not it's worth running or not, and if they don't kite, it's probably the better thing to do with that when you're not in this bolstering affix like you mentioned. But we'll see whenever they run their strategy here.
Well, because we saw Method EU with a 1405 kiting the obelisks the first match of the day, and then we saw Deplete from Beyond with a 1704, but they had 3 deaths and they didn't kite. But those are kind of hard to equate, especially since they weren't playing against one another. Hard to say. It will be interesting to see what ends up happening here.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, what do you guys think that, we talked about it a little bit, Zyro. What does that say about Deplete from Beyond's confidence going into here? I mean, they're playing up against Perplexed. I know it's on different affixes, but they did have that really, really swift Freehold, and they decided to be in Workshop. Do we think that, they have some kind of strategy up their sleeve that we don't know about?
I don't know. I feel like whenever you think about a team that has Dr. J on it, there's always kind of that, I don't know, more mental aspect of it. He's known to come up with some pretty interesting strats in dungeons. That's kind of his bit. So I don't know. It's kind of hard to say. Like, I'm just really interested to see what happens here.
Yeah, I mean, he was formerly on Abracadabra, a team that, had some pretty good success. So definitely not a team that you want to count quite yet as the underdog. And I think, it's anyone's game here at this point, in my opinion. It's 1-1. This is on Freehold, a dungeon that everybody has a really solid base strategy, especially with teams that have been together, for a whole cup already, Nagura.
Yeah, I mean, in the end, I think I've always asked the teams if some of them maybe save some of their strategies in their earlier games. Like, for example, if the number 1 seed plays against the number 8 seed in the very first matchup, I've asked them, do you maybe save some of your cooler strategies and don't use them in the first map, even if you're going to be faster, even if you're going to be slower, to not use that strategy just to keep it a secret, right? Because if you show out one of your cool strategies on broadcast, then all of the other teams are going to know, like this Freehold kiting strat. So, I mean, in the end, it's a possibility that Deplete from Beyond has some cool Freehold strat that they weren't showing earlier as they were playing the Freehold. But that would be super risky by them to not show their faster strategy against Self-Reliance, because Self-Reliance is, of course, also a high-seeded team. So underestimating them seems not possible.
No, definitely not. And it seems like kind of a difficult thing to do, especially if you're a team such as like Method EU, who have in the past said that they're very scripted. They said about 90% of their pulls are scripted. And it seems like changing up your strategy if you think that maybe you're hiding some kind of sick strat that people don't know about from these teams just to maybe get that edge, it might not be worth it if you have to sort of change up what you were planning on doing. Tuttles, what do you think about that?
I mean, Deplete from Beyond definitely went and hold strategies against Self-Reliance. Self-Reliance was actually could have been kind of close to Deplete from Beyond had they not had just a catastrophic wipe in Freehold like numerous times. I think for me though, in this matchup, Deplete from Beyond has really shown that they can be a competitive team against the likes of Perplexed and Method EU, just with how they have been playing in this run. And I guess we're about to see what that's like in a moment.
Indeed, it is 1-1. We are on match point up here with Perplexed versus Deplete from Beyond.
Yeah, so we see both teams already having the exact same comp, actually. So we see Rogue, Hunter, DK, a lot more versatile than the triple Hunter comp we've seen the last game. So interesting to see this kind of comp for Freehold, both them running the same thing as well. I think the Rogue is here is mainly for the explosives, just because they're just so good at dealing with them. And the DK is just there for the huge amount of damage, because Freehold has a lot of trash, and you can do a lot of those big pulls, especially on top of bosses.
Yeah, so you did see a little bit difference in strategy from Perplex and Deplete from Beyond. We saw this earlier whenever Deplete from Beyond was playing Self-Reliance. We saw Perplex do a very similar pull to what we saw from Self-Reliance, where Deplete from Beyond is still running this, it's like 12% trash count pull at the very beginning, 13%. And they don't pull it around line of sight, and it's just a little bit slower, I feel like.
Yeah. So okay, so they were actually saving their Bloodlust for the boss on their side. Well,
yeah.
Perplex was using their Bloodlust a little bit earlier, so interesting to see. I mean, it is a tyrannical environment, right? So using Bloodlust for bosses is definitely a valid strat, but still interesting to see that they're not maybe pulling trash on top or doing something else with their Bloodlust value here. Now, on this boss, in phase 2 specifically, once the boss jumps off the bird, there's a lot of damage coming in from these shots in melee, so you gotta pay attention to the HP of the melee players here as they're getting hit by these powder shots, which just does a huge amount of damage to them.
I'm not a huge DK player, but is Wolf Disco still sitting on Army? Okay, now he pops his Army. 50% of the way into Sky Captain Crag, probably on his second set of CDs for the dungeon, right?
Maybe.
It's kind of weird that he held it for that long. Like, Army is especially in an MDI setting, is very much a single target cooldown.
Yeah.
So it makes sense that they pop it on Sky Captain Crag. I'm kind of surprised that he held it for that long. Obviously, again, like I said, not a DK player. Don't blame me. But I felt it kind of weird that he held it for so long, especially since they bloodlusted the first pull.
Yeah, I agree. It's definitely interesting to see. While Curry did use it on the Bloodlust, we also see some trash actually being pulled on top of the Deplete from Beyond side, which we've seen in the past as well, other teams do. So this trash that they pull on top will give them the percentage they need to catch up to Perplex. So once this is down, they'll both be at around 20% here. We also see the rogues already go off. You see Dr. J and the Shine are not in range anymore, and that's because they ran off to the Ring of Booty to start the RP event to spawn the pig, because it takes quite a while for it to spawn, and that's why it is in the island. They want to be incredibly quick, so they don't want to wait any second at all for this RP to go off, and that's why the rogues are so fast leaving that first boss to trigger it.
Yeah, now you do see Perplex and Deplete from Beyond running down the bridge, making their way towards the second encounter. Both teams are probably going to pull a substantial sized pull into that counter, because it is the Jolly and Raoul set always for the MDI on the tournament realm. The bosses are set like that, so players are able to have as much practice. You see Divine, like I was stating, he runs, grabs his trash pack, making sure that he doesn't end up grabbing the Crusher with it. He's going and grabbing the big Harpooner pack as well, which can be very dangerous. They need to make sure that they dodge the Buccaneers going bananas cast and not get gripped in by the Harpooners into something that would be a little bit more scary. Now they pull all of this trash right on top of Jolly and Raoul. They are praying for a bad brew here, but they have the Death and Decay go down. They don't even need a bad brew. All this trash is gone, Nagura.
Yeah, who needs bad brew when you have a DK in your group that can just kill everything in a couple of seconds? There we go, everything is down. They're now up to 39% in a matter of seconds. Now they do have to deal with the bosses again, and it looked like they had a bad brew there, and Divine Field perfectly positioned them inside. Looks like they have a bad brew again. They're being incredibly lucky on the Perplexed side. Double bad brew in a row. That is so good for them, because the good brews, they do buff your players, but the amount of damage you take the amount of damage you gain from a crit or a haste buff is nowhere near as much as the bad brew does to the mobs.
Exactly. Nagura facts right there. So you see Perplexed here, kiting out Jolly and Raoul. Deplete from Beyond. I think they were just a little bit slower on how they got their pulls set up, and they didn't have as good of cleave as Wolf Disco got on all of that trash. So Kurisu was just a little bit behind in terms of damage, that maybe the pack wasn't just grouped up as cleanly as it was from Perplexed, is how it looked to me. Not every mob was standing on his D&D kind of thing. Perplexed here will be downing Raoul and Jolly here momentarily and making their way towards that Pig RP event in the Ring of Booty. They're going to click that as quickly as possible to be able to activate Ludwig von Tortolan and then eventually Trothak the Shark Puncher.
Yeah, so Perplexed going down on... the boss going down for Perplexed. Perplexed not going down. They're very much alive. As they're moving on, they're pulling this Crusher, but it's probably just going to be a skip. Probably just going to use their Shadow Mail to skip this trash, or they're pulling everything on top of Ludwig. We will see, as Divine Field is already on the other side. Misdirect being popped. So let's see how big of a pull they're doing. While Deplete from Beyond, they're still fighting Jolly here. They did pull some more trash on top though to make use of the brew, but yeah, it'll take a lot longer for the boss here.
Mega dangerous here by Perplexed because there are harpooners in that pack, and if anybody gets gripped either into a turtle shell or into that ground shatter cast by that Crusher, they could go down very quickly. Perplexed does a really good job of being able to nuke those mobs down. Now they just have triple Scrapper, which is the Fixate mobs left alive, which they can deal with fairly easily.
Do you even have the harpooners with this event here? With the parrot event that they have?
Maybe not with that trash pack that they pulled.
Yeah, I don't think so, because I haven't seen like any harpooners so far.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I think in some of the packs there are harpooners, but I think with this event you're right. I think this is the less harpooner event.
Either way, we see the Crusher being really low, and one thing to note about Raging here is that, of course, we have the Hunters who can dispel it, but because the dispel has, I believe, a 10-second cooldown, you can't dispel everything, of course, and therefore you want to save your dispel for Ludwig, and the Crusher still had the enrage effect on him, but better the Crusher having the enrage effect than Ludwig, because the Crusher actually doesn't melee hit that much, because he constantly does the throw rock, and the AoE around him, and while he's doing those casts he doesn't melee hit, and therefore the Raging effect is not too bad on a Crusher, as long as you just don't get hit by its abilities.
Here is the Harpooner pack that I was suggesting that Perplexed was pulling earlier. While Deplete from Beyond is downing this Crusher and Ludwig von Tortolan, you see that Crusher goes in rage, immediately gets soothed off by that Hunter Pet ability to be able to deal with it. Perplexed has a pretty substantial lead right now,
Yeah.
I must say.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I mean, Perplexed just seems to have a faster strategy at this point, because Deplete from Beyond did pull some more trash on top of the second boss to make use of the brews, but it didn't seem to be worth it at all. Perplexed just finished off the boss as soon as they could and just pulled all the trash on top of Ludwig instead, and they didn't lose any sort of efficiency. I mean, yeah, they lose out on the brews, but it doesn't seem to be worth it to min-max around the brews when you could just not get a bad one, and then the haste or the crit that you gain is not even going to be worth it that much. While the Perplexed, on the other hand, they were just moving on, pulled everything on top of Ludwig, and now they pulled a bunch of trash on top of Trothak as well. That now they're up to 69%, while Deplete from Beyond is only in 60%. So not only are they behind when it comes to the dungeon speed, they're also behind in trash percentage as well.
Perplexed unfortunately has a Ferrari Shark currently, running at them at the speed of light. Oh, this is a nice angle. Hippo and his friend Parrot closely spectating Trothak the Shark Puncher. Do you think they're on Trothak's side, or do you think they're on our side, Nagura?
I think they're on our side, but they really like sharks, so they're a little bit of a pickle because they don't know who to root for.
I see. I'm going to ask Dratnus about it later. I think he would know.
We should ask Dratnus for sure.
He seems more of a shark kind of guy.
I agree.
So now you see Deplete from Beyond. They have pulled Trothak the Shark Puncher as well. Pretty substantial sized pull right on top of Trothak, similar to what we saw from Perplexed. Deplete from Beyond is going to be downing this trash pack quicker than what we saw out of Perplexed, though.
Yeah, most definitely. I mean, Yeah, Deplete from Beyond, they are ahead in trash now, right? So they did definitely get a little bit of trash advantage now. They're almost 80%. They also dealt with one of the Awakened mobs, with one of the obelisks. Misty going incredibly low. Eagle here and on the side of Deplete from Beyond did manage to recover a little bit as he has to kite all of the sharks while dealing with the trash as well. So well done to recover here. And yeah, Perplexed, they didn't deal with any obelisks so far. I wonder if they're just gonna do kiting strat, obviously, as we've seen them do before, or if they just choose to kill them with the boss this time around, because we haven't seen them do the Tyrannical Freehold yet. Of course, Perplexed is the team that invented this kiting strat, but maybe they choose to do it differently in the Tyrannical environment.
Yeah, now you see Perplexed, they're making their way onto the area near Harlan Suite. They are down a lot of count, which makes me suspect that they're going to Cannonball Barrage a bunch of stuff instead of kiting obelisks.
Probably. Yeah, it does look like it, because Smok is still here. They're definitely all grouping up, so they're dealing with all 4 Awakened mobs. They did not... Oh, there we go. Divine Field just pulling everything, it looks like.
Oh my goodness, it
They're
pulled
popping
everything.
their Bloodlust as well. They need to make sure they deal with these explosives here. This is going to be Ashine's job. Ashine needs to deal with the explosive, while Wolf needs to deal with the trash. He's the one who needs to kill off all of this trash. As also the patrol is coming in now. They didn't pull it
distracted.
though. They were super close to the patrol. I was a bit afraid they're gonna pull this, as all the Awakened mobs are still alive. And look at the amount of explosives spawning as well, as the Hunter is helping out. And yeah.
You know what I
Well
think's
done by them
hilarious?
so far.
The fact that all of them just stand in the Dark Fury and just let Zamak heal them back up with Way of the Crane. They just commit to being healed back up, and they just pray that it's not going to 100 to 0 them. So they're committed to just like killing explosives and not taking any other incidental damage except for that Dark Fury there, and knowing and believing in Zamak to be able to top them up the very next global. So that's a really good decision making by Perplexed here. I suspect that they're going to probably Cannonball Barrage some more trash mobs once all 4 of these Awakened mobs go down. But as of right now, Divine doing a really good job of kiting all of this stuff out.
Yeah, so a Spirit Breaker actually went through on Divine. It wasn't taunted by the pet, so Divine Field just had to run away because he had the debuff on him, increasing his damage taken. So that's why he was just leaping around, making sure he doesn't get hit by any of the Awakened mobs or the boss. Now the Awakened mobs are going down, and I think you're totally right. I think they're actually going to pull more trash on top once Harlan Suite drops below 60% and does the AoE.
So let me get a point of reference for you guys. So Method EU, with their strategy of kiting the obelisk, did this dungeon in 14 minutes and 5 seconds. I think it's safe to say Perplexed is going to continue to just Cannonball Barrage a bunch of random trash mobs until they have no more trash. They're probably then going to Ravager like the final pack of the dungeon to be able to deal with that. If they can beat the time of 14 minutes and 5 seconds, which seems reasonable at this point, then it looks like the strategy is at least on par with the strategy of kiting the obelisks, if not maybe slightly better. But it is definitely risky in different ways.
Now, interestingly enough, Deplete from Beyond did manage to catch up a little bit now, as Kuri unfortunately went down, but they do have a Battle Rest available. They need to use the Engineering Rest to get him back up. Now, they did pull the boss with the Awakened mobs on top, and they only need 5% trash, so they only need one of these Ravager packs with the Painful Motivation.
No, they're good.
It's still a Tyrannical boss, but they're a lot closer than it looked like.
They have the Awakened mobs with them, so they just have boss HP, basically.
Oh, true. True.
Is their
You're
metric
right,
that they're looking at.
Yeah.
Where Perplexed has finally downed all those mobs with the final Cannonball Barrage that they're going to get. Then once Harlan Suite does get pushed below 50% health, he gains a damage taken increase whenever he casts his loaded dice. He kind of explodes from there on out. Again, 1405 is the time that Method you had earlier. It will be interesting to see what that's going to be like. Deplete from Beyond, though, significantly improving on their 17-minute run in Freehold earlier. This looked very strong by them, even though I think at this point they would need a wipe from Perplexed to be able to win.
It's still close, right? I mean...
Yeah, it is very close. This whole series.
So it's definitely well done by them as well. And as you mentioned, they improved a lot because they have a 17-minute time against Self-Reliance, and now they're going to be closer to a 15-minute time, a little bit more. So either way, well done by Perplexed as they finish up the boss, and they win this series 2-1. And what a close series it was.
Yeah, super close series indeed. And congratulations to Perplexed. They will be moving on to the into the winner's bracket, sorry. And Deplete from Beyond are going to be moving down to the lower bracket, and we will see that match play out tomorrow. And Tettles, you know, you said before this matchup that you really wanted to see Deplete maybe take a win here. How do you think that your boys did?
I think that my boys, I think it's a reach